Sutta number 20, 10.20. Once the Exalted One was staying among the Kurus at Kammasadhamma, a township of the Kurus. On that occasion, the Exalted One addressed the monks, saying, "Monks, there are these 10 ways of Aryan living or abiding, according to which Aryans have lived, do live, and shall live." What 10? Herein, a monk has abandoned 5 factors, is possessed of 6 factors, guards 1 factor, observes the 4 bases or supports, has got rid of individual beliefs or views, has utterly given up longings, his thoughts are unclouded, his body conditioner is tranquilized, he is well released by mind, he is well released by wisdom. These are the 10 ways of Aryan living, according to which Aryans have lived, do live, and shall live. I'll just stop here for a moment. So here, what the Buddha is saying is that Aryans practice these 10 things. But it doesn't mean that all Aryans possess these 10 things. The highest Aryan, which is the Arahant, would possess all these 10 qualities. But other Aryans, for example, the Sotapanna or Sakadagamin or Anagamin, they would have they may have slightly less than all these 10 qualities. Just like the Noble Eightfold Path. If a monk possess the Noble Eightfold Path completely, then he is an Arahant. But other Aryans do not possess the Noble Eightfold Path completely or perfectly. And then the Buddha continued, and how is a monk one who has abandoned 5 factors? Herein a monk has abandoned sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, doubt and wavering. Thus he is one who has abandoned 5 factors. And how is a monk one who is possessed of 6 factors? Herein a monk, seeing an object with the eye, is not elated or depressed, but dwells equanimous, mindful and collected. Hearing a sound with the ear, smelling a scent with the nose, tasting a flavor with the tongue, contacting an object with the body, with mind cognizing mental states, he is not elated or depressed, but dwells equanimous, mindful and collected. Thus is a monk possessed of 6 factors. And how does a monk guard 1 factor? By guarding recollection, or sometimes they translate as mindfulness. He is composed or collected. Thus he guards 1 factor. And how does a monk observe the 4 bases? Herein a monk deliberately develops 1 thing, deliberately nurtures or promotes another thing, restrains 1 thing, abandons or suppresses another thing. Thus a monk observes the 4 bases. And how is a monk one who has got rid of individual beliefs or views? Herein monks, whatsoever individual views generally prevail among recluses and Brahmins, namely, the world is eternal, the world is not eternal, the world is finite, it is infinite, the soul and the body are the same, the soul and the body are different. A Tathagata exists after death, a Tathagata exists not after death, or he both exists and yet exists not, or he neither exists nor exists not after death. All these views are shaken off, put away, given up, let go, abandoned and dismissed. Thus is a monk one who has got rid of individual views. And how is a monk one who has utterly given up longings? Herein in a monk longing for things sensual is abandoned, longing for existence is abandoned, longing for practicing the holy life has calmed down. Thus is a monk, one who has utterly given up longings. And how are a monk's thoughts unclouded? Herein a monk has abandoned thoughts sensual, thoughts malicious, thoughts of harming. Thus are his thoughts unclouded. And how is a monk's body conditioner tranquilized? Herein a monk, by abandoning pleasure and pain, by coming to an end of the ease and discomfort that which he had before, attains and abides in the state of neither pain nor pleasure, and utter equanimity, which is the fourth jhana. Thus his body conditioner is tranquilized. And how is a monk well released by mind? Herein a monk's mind is released from passion, hate and delusion, or greed, hatred and delusion. And how is a monk well released by wisdom? Herein a monk knows for certain, greed or passion is abandoned in me, cut off at the root, made like a palm tree stump, made not to become again, of a nature not to arise again in future. Hatred, delusion is abandoned in me, not to arise again in future time. Thus is a monk well released by wisdom. Monks, whatsoever Aryans have in the past lived according to the Aryan living, all of them lived according to these 10 ways of Aryan living. Whatsoever Aryans shall in future time so live, whatsoever Aryans do now so live, all of them shall live and do live according to these 10 ways of Aryan living. These monks are the 10 ways of Aryan living. And that's the end of the sutta. Now I just explain. The first one, a monk has abandoned 5 factors. That means sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness, and doubt. Now these 5 things are called the 5 hindrances, pancha nivarana. And these are the things that obstruct wisdom. The Buddha said, these are evil things. Only when you get rid of these 5 hindrances can you have wisdom, because they obstruct you from seeing things clearly, from seeing things as they really are. Now, how do you get rid of these 5 hindrances? In a sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha did explain that you must attain the jhana to get rid of the 5 hindrances. So the first one is to abandon the 5 hindrances. The second one, a monk is possessed of 6 factors. Seeing an object with the eye, he is not elated or depressed, but dwells equanimous, mindful and collected. And similarly with hearing a sound, smelling a smell, etc. So here it means guarding, mindful of the 6 sense doors, and practicing. Here in Pali it's called satto sampajano. Satto refers to sati, having recollection, and sampajano means mindfulness or full awareness. Full awareness. These 2 terms tend to come together, because when you practice mindfulness, and then you tend to have sati. Sampajano or sampajanya means having full awareness or mindfulness, and sati is to remember to put your mind in the right direction at the 4 objects of sati. Then number 3 is to guard 1 factor. Here this factor is also sati. Sati, recollection. This is guarding 1 factor. Sati is quite important for a monk who is practicing, putting the mind on the body, the feelings, the mind and the Dhamma. And number 4, how is to observe the 4 bases. These 4 bases are the 4 right efforts. Deliberately develop one thing, deliberately nurture or promote another thing, restrain or avoid one thing, abandon or suppress another thing. This refers to wholesome states and unwholesome states. The first one is wholesome states. Wholesome states that have not developed, you must develop it. They have not arisen, you have to develop it so that it arises. And then wholesome states that have already arisen, you should nurture or promote it so that it continues to arise. And then unwholesome states that have not arisen, you should avoid or restrain it from arising. And unwholesome states which have already arisen, you try to suppress it or abandon it. So these are the 4 right efforts. And number 5, the monk has got rid of individual views. All kinds of views exist in the world. That the world is eternal, the world is not eternal, the world is finite or infinite, etc. These all have to do with an ego. Once you have a view of a self, then you tend to think about all these things. So the monk has got rid of all these views. Number 6 is to have given up longings. Here, longings refers to sensual longings, longing for existence, and longing for practicing the holy life has calmed down. The first one you can understand, sensual objects, longing for sensual things, you abandon. Longing for existence also you abandon when you become an Arya. But the third one, longing for practicing the holy life has calmed down. This one looks a bit strange. In the first sutta of the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha said that some deva asked him, how did you cross the flood? And the Buddha said, not striving and not standing still, I crossed the flood. The Buddha said, when I strove, I was swirled about. When I stood still, I sank. Thus, without striving, without standing still, I crossed the flood. What the Buddha meant was, if he made too much effort, then he was swirled around. If you make too much effort. But if you make no effort at all, also that means he sank in the middle of suppose a person is trying to cross the river. He make too much effort, he'll go in a circle. So if he make no effort, he'll sink in the water. So the Buddha said, neither striving nor standing still, he crossed the flood. In other words, to have an equanimous mind. If you have too much desire to get liberated for a monk, that is also bad. Having no desire to get liberated, also bad. So the mind must be equanimous, and then only he could cross the flood. Number 7, how are a monk's thoughts unclouded? A monk has abandoned thoughts sensual, thoughts malicious, and thoughts of harming. These are the wrong thoughts. So he has abandoned wrong thoughts, and so his thoughts are unclouded. And number 9, his body conditioner is tranquilized. This one, Kaya Sankara. Kaya Sankara the body conditioner refers to the breath, because the breath is conditioned by the body is conditioned by the breath, and the body exists because of the breath. So the body conditioner refers to the breath, and here it means the breath has stopped, because when a person attains the 4th jhana, the breath stops. So here this Aryan has attained the 4th jhana, and normally that is a condition for an Anagamin and an Arahant. He must, an Anagami, a 3rd fruition, and an Arahant, 4th fruition, Arya, they must attain the 4 jhanas. And then number 9, a monk is released by mind. Here he is released from greed, hatred and delusion, or passion, hatred and delusion. And then how is a monk released by wisdom? Also he is released from passion or greed, hatred and delusion. So these are the 10 things that Aryans practice and or they attain to become Aryans. Some of them you find is refers only to the Arahant. For example, the last two, released or liberated by mind, and released or liberated by wisdom. This only refers to the Arahant.
Body